Welcome back to the Forgive Yourself podcast. I am your host, Brenda Reese. Now, today begins a special 3-part series that I am calling When Father's Day Feels Complicated, a 3-part series on the father wound, forgiveness, and healing. Now, Father's Day, as you know, can bring up so much, actually. It can bring up love, grief, gratitude, anger, longing, guilt, confusion, or even numbness. And in this series, we're going to make room for it all. This is not about blaming fathers, even though I know a lot of us really want to, and I did for a long, long time. It's also not about forcing forgiveness. And it's not about pretending something didn't or doesn't hurt. It's really about gently looking at what we received, what we didn't receive, what we came to believe about ourselves, and how can we begin to heal? Now, when I say there is room for all of it, I mean you don't have to force gratitude if grief is present. You don't have to minimize what hurt just because someone says, but he did the best he could, right? We've heard that. And even though that there's truth to that, it still minimizes your pain. So we want to address that first. And you don't have to pretend the relationship was simple, right? Especially when they never usually are. And you don't have to make your father all good or all bad in order to tell the truth about your experience. That's one of the many things that I have learned in the forgiveness work is that our truth is layered. We can love someone and still be hurt by them. We can appreciate what they gave and still grieve what they couldn't give. We can understand more about their life, their wounds, their limitations, and still acknowledge the impact their choices or absence had on us. And that is what we're exploring today. So today is when Father's Day feels complicated, forgiving what you didn't receive. Not because what hadn't happened didn't matter, and not because you need to excuse the pain, and not because you need to rush yourself into peace. That's not what this is about. You know, there may come a time when you realize you are tired of carrying the ache of what you did not receive as proof that you were not enough. And maybe, just maybe, forgiveness becomes the doorway to reclaiming those parts of you that are still waiting to be chosen, to be seen, to be protected, or to be loved. Now, one of the most tender places to begin is with this distinction that I want to share with you. There's the father you had, and then there's the father you needed. A lot of times, those are very, very different. Maybe you had a father who provided financially, but didn't know how to connect emotionally. Maybe you had a father who was physically present, but emotionally distant. That was mine. Maybe you had a father who loved you, but didn't know how to show it in a way your heart could recognize. Maybe you had a father who was critical, controlling, absent, unpredictable, addicted, angry, distracted, or simply unable to see you clearly. And maybe you had a good father in many ways, and yet there were still places where your heart needed more. And that can be hard to admit, because we often think we have to choose one story. Either he was a good dad, or he hurt me, or he did the best he could, I didn't get what I needed, or I should be grateful, or I'm allowed to be angry. Right? But healing often asks us to hold more than one truth. You've heard me say before, we can hold two truths at the same time. So you might say, my father worked hard and I still needed emotional connection. My father loved me in the way he knew how, and I still felt unseen. My father had his own pain, and I was still affected by how he handled it. Or my father gave me some things, and I am allowed to grieve what he could not give. This is not betrayal. This is truth. And for many people, especially daughters, this can be deeply emotional because the father relationship can shape so much of how we come to see ourselves. Did I feel protected? Did I feel chosen? Did I feel safe being myself? Was I delighted in, right? Did my voice matter? Did I feel like I had to earn attention? Did I feel like I had to perform, achieve, stay small, stay quiet, or be easy in order to be loved? These questions matter because what we didn't receive often becomes something we spend years trying to earn from other people. I know I did. We may not even realize we are doing it. We may become high achieving, that I can do it myself, right? We may become overly responsible. We may become really good caretakers. We may become the peacekeeper. We may become the one who doesn't need anything. We may become the one who keeps proving, performing, and pushing, hoping that someday someone will finally say, I see you. I am so proud of you. You matter to me. Honey, you are enough. And I love you just for you. And if any of this is landing somewhere in your heart or somewhere for you right now, let's take a breath. It's not about blaming your father. It's not about blaming you. That's a real biggie when I say it's not about blaming our father or ourselves, because we want to blame them, right? But you know what this is really about? It's about noticing what your heart learned in that relationship. It's about giving yourself permission to tell the truth to you. Now, we have to talk about grief here because sometimes the hardest grief is not only grieving what did happen, it's grieving what did not happen. Those words that were never said, the protection that wasn't there, the apology that never came, the tenderness you didn't receive, the interest he didn't show, the way he didn't know how to ask about your inner world or what was going on for you, the moments when you needed him to notice and he didn't, the milestones where you wished he had shown up differently or even shown up, the times you looked for approval and felt criticism instead, the times you needed comfort and got silence, or the times you needed safety but got unpredictability. And this kind of grief can be confusing because there may not be one clear event to point to. It might not sound dramatic when you try to explain it. You might say, nothing really terrible happened. He just wasn't there. Or you might say, he provided. Gosh, I should be grateful. Or wow, other people had it so much worse, right? We're minimizing. Or some of my clients have said, well, I'm sure he didn't mean to hurt me. And all of that may be true. But your younger self, the one that went through all this, didn't only need food, shelter, and practical support. She also needed emotional presence, reassurance. She needed to feel safe, to feel known. She needed to feel that her feelings were not too much. How many of you were told you were too much? She needed to feel that her needs mattered. And when those things were missing, something inside may have started making meaning from it. A child is a child. We're not able to go, okay, my father is emotionally unavailable because of his own history, conditioning, wounds, or limitations. Right? As a kid, we're going, It must be me. I'm too much. I'm not important. I have to be better. Gosh, I have to work harder. I have to be easier to love. I shouldn't need so much. I'm asking for too much. I have to earn attention. I have to be perfect to be loved. Or I have to take care of everyone else. And that is where self-forgiveness becomes so important. Because as adults, we are not only healing the relationship with our Father, we are healing the beliefs we formed about ourselves in response to what we didn't receive. You know, as I've mentioned parts of my story about my father, and I took on those beliefs myself when I was about 5 when my parents divorced. And my mom had said that I always tried to get his attention, but he never would really pay attention to me. And I don't remember him paying attention to me. He was there, but absent. And when they got divorced, I remember that. I remember feeling like I did something wrong. It was my fault. And I didn't do something right. And especially when we went to visit, because he moved into another family fairly quickly. And when he still wouldn't pay attention to me, but he paid attention to his stepdaughter, who was my age. And that really kind of solidified my belief that what's wrong with me? Why am I unlovable? So I made it about me, not about that my parents were going through, they had their own issues, right? There was abuse, there was all sorts of stuff. But I made it about me, and I carried that for a long time. So I'm with you. It took work to work through those, and awareness and taking responsibility and giving responsibility back that wasn't even mine to hold, so that I could make a different choice. And so I really want you to hear something. What you didn't receive was not proof that you were not worthy of receiving it. What you didn't receive was not proof that you were not worthy of receiving it. Your Father's capacity was not the measure of your worth. His ability or inability to love, protect, listen, apologize, connect, or understand was never the final truth about you. And sometimes, without realizing it, we live as though it was. And that was my story. I lived as though it was, like what I believed about that, about his silence, about what he didn't say to me, was just as powerful as, as some people tell me what they did hear. Either one is so, it can be painful. And we carry those forward. I carried this belief into every relationship, right? Looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for approval, male, and trying to get this attention, and thinking, gosh, love is so hard. I always had to prove myself. And because I believed that, I brought that. I mean, I lived it. Let's put it that way. Because it's not about blaming me. It was just the fact of, oh, this is a pattern, until I recognized the pattern and could do something about it. One of the things that can happen in complicated father relationships is that we take on the roles. Okay, so this leads into from my story. These roles begin as survival strategies. They help us stay connected. They can help us feel safer. They can help us receive attention, right? If I was a good girl, then I got attention. But if I did something bad, I also got attention, right? So some of these survival strategies, they help us avoid conflict, right? If we stay quiet, if we people please. And they may have helped us make sense of what was happening in the family when we take on a certain role. But later, those same roles can become exhausting. So like me, maybe you became the good girl, the one who followed the rules, the one who didn't cause problems. Or maybe you became the one who got good grades. You achieved, you smiled, you helped, you stayed pleasant, and you made everyone proud. Maybe you became the achiever, the one who learned that success brings attention, the one who thought if I accomplish enough, maybe I'll finally feel valued. Maybe you became the peacekeeper, the one who watched everyone's moods. I did this. The one who tried to keep things calm, the one who learned to manage tension before anyone else even noticed it, right? Who's my hyper aware people? Yep. Maybe you became the caretaker, the one who worried about your father, the one who tried to understand him, the one who made excuses for him, the one who protected his feelings even when yours was not being protected. Maybe you became invisible, the one who didn't ask for much, the one who learned to disappear emotionally, the one who decided it's just easier if I don't need anything. And maybe you became the rebel, the one who pushed back, the one who said, you can't hurt me if I act like I don't care. I don't need you, or I don't need anyone. Now, none of these roles are wrong. They were actually very intelligent responses. They are ways that you and I adapted. So here are some questions I'd like you to consider. Are you still living from a role that began in that relationship with your father? Are you still trying to be chosen by being perfect? Are you still trying to earn love by overgiving? Are you still silencing your needs because somewhere along the way you learned they wouldn't be met anyway? Are you still looking to authority figures, partners, bosses, unavailable people to finally give you the approval you wanted from him? This is where Father's Day can become more than a holiday. It can become an invitation. Not an easy one, but an honest one. This is about inviting you to ask yourself, who or what did I become in order to feel loved, safe, or connected? And then, after you get that answer, ask yourself very gently, is that still who I want to be? I don't know what that answer is. And maybe there is no answer yet. Just let it be. Asking that question, asking your subconscious that question is enough. It just shifts. Instead of I have to be this way, all of a sudden it opens up a little window. Is that still who I want to be? We're going to get curious. Now let's talk about how father wounds show up in adult relationships. Now this one is a tender one because father wounds don't always stay in the past, right? They often show up in the relationships we choose, the dynamics we tolerate, and the way we relate to ourselves. Sometimes father wounds show up as chasing emotionally unavailable people. That was my whole story. Now, we don't do it because we consciously want pain. We do it because something familiar in the nervous system says, this is love. This is what connection feels like. I know how to work for this. Right? Get that? I know how to work for this. Sometimes they show up as over functioning. You become the one who does the emotional labor, the one who explains, the one who forgives too quickly, the one who tries so hard, the one who sees potential instead of reality. Sometimes they show up as accepting crumbs. A little attention feels like enough. A little kindness feels huge. A little affection feels like proof that maybe this time you'll be chosen. Sometimes they show up as difficulty trusting yourself. You may second guess your decisions. You may look outside yourself for permission. You may doubt your feelings. You may override your own knowing because someone else seems more certain, more powerful, more confident, or more authoritative. Sometimes father wounds show up in your relationship with success. You may become driven by a quiet question. Am I enough now? Have I done enough now? Are you proud of me now? Do I matter now? And this is so true for us high achieving women. Achievement can become a beautiful strength, and it can also become a place where old pain hides. You know, like I've been told many times, you look like you have it all together. You can be capable, successful, dependable, wise, and strong. And yet inside, there's a younger part wondering, why didn't he see me? Why wasn't I worth showing up for? Why did I have to work so hard for love? What was wrong with me? And if this is you, I want you to take just a deep breath. When we are hearing this, we are experiencing it, right? So I really want you to be gentle with yourself. And I really want you to offer yourself compassion, okay? And I want you to hear me. There is nothing wrong with you because you learned to seek love this way. There is nothing wrong with you because you wanted your father's approval. There is nothing wrong with you because you wanted to feel chosen. Those are human longings. The healing begins when you stop shaming yourself for the longing and start listening to what it is trying to show you. Okay. So now let's talk about forgiveness. When we talk about forgiving a father, this can bring up a lot. When I was doing the forgiveness training, I think I may have mentioned this before, but I was not wanting to. I knew that I had to because I was entering into this relationship that would be my fourth marriage. And I could still feel like there was some stuff going on, right? I had gone through a very difficult third divorce, as you've heard me talk about. And so when I found the forgiveness work and I was doing the work, and then I decided to become a forgiveness coach, and I was doing this training with Colin Tipping, who developed the radical forgiveness approach and technology. And I was working on the father wound. And so, and I was like, because this pattern was showing up in my work now, right? So it wasn't just in my relationship; it was also with my boss and with other people, and I really wanted to heal this, and I didn't realize how much resistance I was having to it. And so when it came time for the exercise, where we're writing this all out, and I could just let him have it, and all this writing that we did, and it came down to, we had the tennis racket and we were beating like the pillow, right? Like the big ottoman type of thing. And so Colin is working with you, and he's saying, get everything out, share what you want to share. And I am cussing and screaming and just hitting this thing. How dare you? Fuck you, all this stuff, right? Because angry and hurt and crying. And he says to me, as we're going along, and I finally get tired, and he says, Brenda, have you ever thought that maybe your father didn't know how to be a father? And he goes, that era, that generation, they were just told to have kids, right? So maybe he didn't know how to be one. And I looked at Colin, I said, fuck you. I said, if he's going to screw around and have kids, then he needs to take responsibility and be a good father. I was in so much resistance to even looking at forgiving him, because I had my own expectations. I had my own hurt, and he didn't show up for me the way I wanted him to. So Colin tried to explain this, and I was just in such resistance. So You may feel this immediate resistance when I'm to say, hey, let's talk about forgiveness and forgiving your father. Because, what come up for you might be, I'm not ready. He doesn't deserve it. That was mine. What he did was not okay. He never apologized. He still doesn't understand. If I forgive him, does that mean I have to have a relationship with him? If I forgive him, does that mean what happened didn't matter, that I didn't matter? Right? And as you can tell by my story, I hear you and I see you. And I want to be very clear. Forgiveness does not mean what happened didn't matter. It does not mean you excuse any hurt. Forgiveness does not mean you erase the impact it had on you. And forgiveness does not mean you have to pretend. It does not mean you have to reconcile if it's not healthy for you. And forgiveness does not mean they have access to you. It doesn't mean you abandon your boundaries. And forgiveness is not about making the other person comfortable. Forgiveness in the way I teach it is about your freedom and your liberation. Forgiveness is about releasing the grip that the pain has had on your identity, on your relationships, on your nervous system, and on your sense of self. Forgiveness is about no longer organizing your life around what you didn't receive. It is about no longer carrying someone else's limitations as a statement about your worth. Forgiveness is saying, I can tell the truth about what happened. I can grieve what I needed. I can honor the impact, and I can choose not to let this pain define who I become next. That is it's very different from excusing. It's different from pretending. And sometimes forgiveness begins with one simple sentence. I am willing to stop making his inability to love me the measure of my own love ability. Okay. Let's say it again. I am willing to stop making his inability to love me the measure of my own lovability. Now, saying a statement doesn't mean you're fully there, right? It's willing. I'm willing. I love that word, as you know, if you've been with me for a while, willing in this work is so important because it just opens a doorway. And you know what? Sometimes willingness that's all we need, just for right now. Just the willingness to possibly entertain the idea. That's all. And then we can let that go and we can go on. Now, the ending of that story, I had to sit with that. So I'm at an impasse because I am not willing to go there. I'm not willing to agree with Colin that maybe he didn't know. I wasn't willing to bring in any empathy or compassion. And I sat with it for the rest of that day and overnight into the next day. And it was in the morning when I was taking a walk before we began our training. And it was like, have I ever not wanted to be a mom? And because I had 2 kids, and I had one of my marriages, I had 4 kids because I had stepchildren. And I thought, you know what? And then I remembered my mom going on strike, right? Because for a period of time in my life, I was one of 9 children. And I remember her going on strike. We couldn't call her mom. We couldn't call her name. And so all of a sudden, my heart just kind of opened. And because I was willing, right? I'm willing. My heart opened. And then it was like, yeah, there are sometimes it's hard to be a mom, especially spent a good part of my kids growing up as a single mom. So that opened the door, just a little crack. Maybe, just maybe, he didn't know how to be a dad. Maybe, just maybe, he didn't know how to love me the way I wanted to be loved. Maybe it wasn't about me. And that was a powerful opening for me. Now, sometimes it doesn't come that quickly. I'm in an environment, right? I was submersed into the forgiveness work, and I think that makes a difference sometimes. But sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Yet I wasn't forcing it. And that's why I said in the beginning, is not about forcing forgiveness. It's about understanding. It's about compassion. It's about being willing to look at it a little bit different. And so that's all I'm asking for you is just be willing. Okay. Now, we talked about forgiveness and we talked about the resistance. So how do we begin forgiving what we didn't receive? I think we begin by naming it. Now, this is not to stay stuck in the story. Some people think that if I name it, I'm going to stay stuck in it. It brings it deeper. No. This is because what remains unnamed often remains carried. Okay. So you could ask yourself, what did I need from my father that I didn't receive? Maybe it was protection, tenderness, encouragement, emotional safety, consistency, interest in myself, right? Affection, respect, an apology, or love. And once you name it, and it could be more than one, of course. Once you name it, you can ask, what did I start believing about myself because I didn't receive that? For me, I didn't receive love. So I thought I was unworthy. I was told I was a mistake. I wasn't supposed to happen. Therefore, I don't matter. And then his action showed to me, I don't matter. Right? So that's what I started to believe. I had to really work hard to get your love and get your attention and get your approval. And do you see how exhausting that is? Can you relate to this at all? Oh my gosh. So when we ask ourselves that question, what did I start believing about myself because I didn't receive that? This is where the deeper work begins, because the pain of what happened is one layer, yet the belief that formed from it is often the layer that is still shaping our life, our current reality. So maybe you believed, I'm not important. I have to be perfect to be loved. That's what I took on. Men always leave. Yep, took that one on too. Love is hard. My needs don't matter. I have to handle everything alone. Love is inconsistent. Maybe you believed I should be grateful for whatever I get. I'm too much. Or maybe you believed I'm not enough. You can see my cat if you're on YouTube. You can see my grandkitty, Mishka, just joined us. He loves being in the room. So once we name what we didn't receive and then find the belief underneath it, then self-forgiveness can ask, can I forgive myself for believing that? Or can I be willing to forgive myself for believing that? Can I be willing to forgive myself for adapting? Can I be willing to forgive myself for chasing love from people who couldn't give it? Can I be willing to forgive myself for staying in a relationship too long or a job too long? Can I forgive myself for abandoning myself to be chosen? Or can I be willing to forgive myself, right? Either way. Can I forgive myself or be willing to forgive myself for thinking I had to earn what should have been freely given? Can I be willing to forgive myself for not knowing then what I know now? This is so important for our healing because sometimes we focus on so much on forgiving the other person that we miss the ways that we are still judging ourselves. We judge the younger version of ourselves. We judge the choices we made. We judge the relationships we entered. We judge the ways we coped, and we judge the needs we had. And I really want you to hear me on this. You do not need to punish yourself for the ways you tried to survive not receiving what you needed. You do not need to shame yourself for wanting love, and you do not need to criticize the younger part of you who kept hoping things would change, or even the adult you, because I carried that into my adult life. Please remind yourself that, your younger self, all your younger selves were doing the best that they could with what they knew. And you all deserve compassion now. One of the most empowering parts of this work is realizing that even though you cannot go back and receive from your father what you needed then, you can begin giving something to yourself now. It's true. I know. I know we hear this like reparenting. We're hearing a lot of this now. And we're like, yeah, whatever. It's true though. Now, I want you to keep in mind something. It doesn't erase the loss. It can't. It's like saying we forgive and forget. We don't forget ever, but we can take the pain out of it, out of the memory. And another thing I want to say is it doesn't make the grief disappear overnight either, right? So what I want you to know that it does is it helps you stop waiting for your healing to come only from the person who hurt you or disappointed you, right? It helps you stop waiting for your healing to come only from the person who hurt you or disappointed you. This is where you begin coming home to yourself. So I'd love you to ask yourself, what did I need to hear from him? Maybe it was, I'm proud of you. I see you. You matter to me. You are safe. You don't have to prove anything. You are not too much. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. Or I'm sorry I did that. Just I'm sorry. Maybe you want to hear you didn't deserve that. Or I love who you are, not just what you do. And then you can offer something to yourself, because the adult who you are and the adult who you are becoming can be that safe presence for your younger self. So the adult you can begin to say to the other parts of you, I believe you. I'm here now. You don't have to keep earning love. You don't have to keep chasing approval. You don't have to keep shrinking. Your needs matter. Actually, we can even have needs. You don't have to keep proving your worth. You are allowed to choose yourself first. And this is not just inner child language, right? This is self-trust. This, my friend, is emotional freedom. This is learning to no longer abandon yourself in the same places where you were once abandoned, unseen, dismissed, or unmet. That is powerful and brave work. Now, before we close, I want to offer you a few reflection questions. Now, these questions will be in a download in the show notes and on my website and resources. But for now, simply let them move through your heart. And please be gentle with yourself. You don't have to answer any of them or at all, or you can't. But I just want you to notice what comes up. And then you can download it if you want to do work on it later. Okay, question number 1. When I think about Father's Day, what feeling rises first? Love, grief, anger, obligation, confusion, sadness, gratitude, numbness? There's no wrong answer. I had all of it for a long time. Question 2. What did I need from my father that I didn't fully receive? Now let this be simple, okay? Was it protection? Just being present? Maybe it's softness, approval, consistency. Maybe it was curiosity about who you really were. Let it be simple. Question 3. What belief did I form about myself because of that? Did I start believing I had to be perfect? That I wasn't worth choosing? That my needs were too much? That love had to be earned? Or that I had to handle everything alone because I couldn't count on anyone? These are big. Take your time. I'm breathing deep. Okay. Now, question 4. Where is that belief still showing up for you in your life today? Is it in relationships? At work? Is it in your boundary setting? Is it with men? With friendships? With authority figures? With receiving? With asking for help? Or with trusting yourself? Where does it show up? Question 5. What would I like to offer myself now that I did not receive then? Okay, this is a good one. And this one you might have to sit with for a little while because, maybe it's finally compassion. We've been so freaking hard on ourselves because of what we didn't receive, right? Maybe we're tired of that. Maybe it's time for compassion. Maybe you'd like to offer yourself permission, protection. Maybe it is time to rest. Giving yourself permission to rest is a huge deal for us high achieving women. And is it truth? Even if it's only to yourself first. Maybe it's believing that you were always enough. And one final question. Number 6. What am I willing to stop carrying and stop believing as proof that I was not loved enough? That one could take some time, and I want you to let it take time. What am I willing to stop carrying and stop believing as proof that I was not loved enough? This brings our power back to us. I want to say that. Forgiveness is about taking your power back. Instead of blaming someone else, which gives all of our energy and our power to someone else, this question alone, all of the questions, but that one alone brings the power back to us. And that's really what we want and what we need. So as we come to the end of our time together today, I want to leave you with this. If Father's Day feels complicated for you, you are not alone. You are allowed to honor what was good. You are allowed to grieve what was missing. You are allowed to feel tenderness. You are allowed to feel anger. You are allowed to feel nothing at all. And you are allowed to choose what kind of contact, celebration, remembrance, boundary, or silence that feels right for you. There is no one right way to move through this day. And forgiveness, if and when you choose it, is not about forcing yourself to feel something you do not feel. It is about freedom. It is about releasing the old belief that what you didn't receive means something is wrong with you. It is about recognizing that your father's limitation was never the measure of your worth. Okay, I feel, as you can tell, really strongly about that. And maybe for today, the practice is simply this. I can grieve what I didn't receive without believing I was unworthy of receiving it. Okay, let's say that together. I can grieve what I didn't receive without believing I was unworthy of receiving it. That, my friend, is where the healing begins. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I really do cherish our time together. And if this episode spoke to you, please share it with someone who may need a gentle reminder that they are not alone, especially around Father's Day. And if you're noticing any old relationship patterns or people-pleasing, codependency, or the ache of not feeling chosen, if you notice that's still showing up in your life and you'd like some support, please take a look at my website, Brenda Reis, REISS coaching.com. There are blogs and resources there for you to begin your journey of discovery and coming back home to yourself. Meanwhile, remember that you matter a lot. And until next time, take care. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy it, would you do me a favor and share this episode and then follow us on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss one episode of the Forgive Yourself podcast, where every Friday you will get tips, tools, and stories so that you can turn your pain into peace. Take care.